So Tony, congratulations on the album. I heard it. I was really impressed with it. Some great, strictly for the clubs,
Yes.
and really good vocals and great production. And I know you've been around a long while, and people may not be familiar with all your work. So just give me a sort of introduction on how you got started in the music business and with producing.
Between 7 and 9, my mom had brought me a drum set, a bass guitar, lead guitar, amps, microphones, congas, bongos. I have 4 brothers, so she just assumed that maybe we would try to form a band or what have you because we were heavy into church at the time. I was the one that pretty much took to all of that stuff. As time went on, I was just playing drums. I was in a couple of bands, high school bands, church bands. And then it got to a point where I started DJing, which was 14 or something like that. And at
Okay.
that time, I wanted to do something different when I DJ. I knew of a couple of producers, Boy Jarvis and Timmy Regisford on BLS, and he would play a lot of Boy Jarvis tracks. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I would like to do something like that. And so you could say about 14 is when I really started getting into trying to make tracks. Didn't know how to play keyboards, but I just decided to do one finger at a time until I got it. And,
Mm.
you know, I'm here, now.
Right. So, I mean, from being 14 and learning, keyboards and teaching yourself, what were the first early productions you did?
My first early production, I could just say at a quote unquote official kind of home studio was actually at Burrell Brothers. Yeah.
Ronnie and Reggie Burrell,
Yes.
New
Mm.
Groove.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And my
Karen and
uncle,
Frank Mendes. I remember interviewing those guys years ago.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, my uncle took me over to their house. I never been in any kind of studio before. My uncle worked at Rutgers radio station. He met them through there. So he got cool with them. He took me there. He was like, my nephew, he could, he does tracks and what have you. Could he work out in your studio just to see how it works or whatever? That's where I did my first track per se, at a studio. After that, I just decided to get my own stuff, you know.
Right. And then I know you were working with
Tony
Tony Humphries. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That came a few years later, actually through Abigail Adams from Movement Records. That
Right.
was a buddy, and she supplied music to him from the record store.
Mm.
And she put out my very first record, which was Tracking Down the House. Through that, Tony got it. He loved it. He was like, hey, I would like him to work with me doing remixes. And that's how I met Tony, officially met Tony, because I was going to Zanzibar for the longest
Right.
time. Yeah.
So this was in the height of the Jersey house movement in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, well, you could say, I don't want to say, well, if you were here, if you lived here, it was actually a little before the late 80s,
Okay.
because, I mean, Zanzibar was the place to go,
Yeah.
regardless. But, and Tony was breaking records at that time. He was at Kiss FM. I mean, the place was already, but you could say the late 80s, early 90s is when house was really, at its total peak. Yeah,
Yeah.
without question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did you do then in terms of establishing yourself as a producer when you started working with Tony?
Well, actually, I established myself as a producer when I did Tracking Down the House on a subsidiary record label called Sample Records through Moving Records. At that point, my first record, it made some noise, in the underground house scene. And so at that point, and also I already had a name as a DJ kind of in the neighborhood. Once that released, as a matter of fact, the great Larry Patterson was in the studio with me at that time. And I also, the engineer was Tommy Mosto
Okay.
at that time. And so that solidified me as a producer.
Right.
From that point, I just went straight into doing remixes with Tony Humphries. So I was in all the major studios and working on major labels doing remixes with Tony Humphries.
And what were you doing? What was your contribution to this point?
Right. My contribution was I was the programmer. I would go to the studio, whatever studio, wherever it was. I would go and just create the tracks. I would create all the music tracks. I would create all the drum tracks. Then Tony would come in, do his thing where, he would do his mix with all my tracks.
Okay.
So I
Right.
was the
So,
programmer, keyboardist. Mhm.
and then in the 90s, how did you? What were you up to at that point? When Jersey House had sort of peaked,
Uh-huh.
and then hip hop was really started taking over. But the underground, there was still an underground scene.
Hmm.
What were you doing?
I was making records. I put out a few records of my own. Yeah, I put out stuff on Strictly. Again, like I said, I had a couple of labels on my own that I put out a few tracks. So in the interim of all of that, and also doing remixes, and I did that with Tony for about 3 years, I believe it was,
Okay.
close to 3 years. So I was just constantly working. I did so many remixes, I don't remember a whole lot of it.
Right.
And remember, I was really new at it because, again, I'm a guy that taught myself how to do this. No one else taught me. So
And what would you say your strengths are? Your strengths. What did you develop? What skills did you develop at that point where people could say, "Oh, yeah, did Tony V do that?" What was your signature at that point?
my signature, is and was my drums.
Okay.
I usually use a really strong foot, uh, like rumble, like as if I was at the Zanzibar, if I was at a club. Even till this day, people that know my sound would say that sound like a Tony V production because of the kick.
Did you use a 909 and just change it, or did you mix a lot of kicks together to get that sound? Or
I did all of that, all of
okay,
that. But my first initial kick was a 909, and
right,
it come from EQing and tuning to give it whatever it is that I wanted. I wasn't
right,
afraid to tweak any instrument I used. Wasn't afraid, you know,
right,
to make my own sound. And when you come from a situation where you don't have a lot, you make the best out of what you got. You know.
right, right. And you've always had a very soulful sound as well. I noticed when you did that remix for Randy Muller, he first thing he said to me, he said, "I love Tony's remix. It's so soulful."
Mm-hmm.
How did you develop that aspect? Because I know you came from a gospel background, but there's definitely a soulful feeling in your music. It's not just bland house music, dance music. There's some warmth to your productions. How
Right.
did you develop that?
Well, that comes from listening actually to all types of music.
Mm.
I find soul in even rock music. Actually, what I grew up on is WABC, that station WABC. So it was nothing but mellow rock,
Right.
60s and 70s. And even though it was, predominantly white, I still find different sounds that were soulful to me. I mean,
Mm.
outside of, the common Motown,
Mm.
outside of just the common Philadelphia, international, just, I don't know. I think it was just the fact that I had a musical, I guess, a soulful kind of something in me, you know. I can't say it was this or it was that, but it's only something that I heard, as growing up, something that I heard when I would hear music, played in the streets or in a lounge or anywhere, I don't know. It's a natural thing for me,
Mm. Yeah. And so let's start talk about this latest project. How did it begin? How did it start? And what was your intention for it when you first started this?
Okay. How it kind of came about was I had so many tracks and I wasn't doing much as far as, trying to get records on different labels or even putting out, stuff on my own. Um, but I had a few good tracks that I was like, you know what, I think this stuff needs to come out. But before that, I reunited with my partner, Darren Jenkins from Backroom Music Productions and the great group Jamanda. He was embarking on some different production and different things like that. And I went to him, I was like, hey, I'm interested in doing some new and different things. At that point, I said to him that I didn't I didn't actually go hard for me to produce something, you know, on that scale, kind of. And I wanted to produce something, an album pretty much majorly for DJs. I know,
Mm.
there are a lot of producers out there, club producers that do it, but I wanted it to be done coming from me, coming from the way that I do it, coming from giving those elements from the 80s, the late 80s, into the 90s, the old underground feel, the old classic underground club house feel. So he was like, that's a great idea. I started to compile the different tracks that I had to come up with some new ideas and things of that nature. And that's how it started to form. And again, it was a natural situation. It wasn't something that I set out to say, I'm gonna make an album today. No,
Mm.
these are tracks that I actually sat down and made with the idea of it was just something I needed to get out. And it just
Right.
it just came together, in that way.
Okay. Well, let's go through these. Let's go through these tracks, Tony, and you could talk to me about them and give me your impressions on them. Let's start with the first one. Tony Vee featuring Delia M. The Wild Groove.
Yeah, D Wild Groove. Yes,
Yeah, D Wild Groove.
yes. That came about because we have a radio show called Clublife on D Wild Music Radio, which is a very close friend of ours named Deuce Martinez.
Oh,
So
Deuce. I know Deuce.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I joined, his internet radio station. In the interim of all that, it's a bunch of DJs on there, people that I kind of gotten to know. I said to Deuce, I said, hey, do you mind if I do a track dedicated to me, just giving something to the programmers on the station, just so they can play, just as a gift. And he said, yeah. So I produced that track. Miss Delia Martinez, she was or is a bona fide supporter for D Wow. I became real cool with her. And she had mentioned to one of the other programmers named Dennis Gregory, that is also a very close friend of Tony Humphreys. And he also came from the Zanzibar time and era. He was a DJ and a light man there as well. And he was friends with Larry Levan and Larry Patterson, but his buddy was T. Scott. Yes, the great T. Scott. Anyway, she mentioned to him that she wanted to kind of do like a talk over type thing over a track. And I thought once I did the track, I said, you know what? She would be good for it, just
Mm.
because she's just speaking. Never did anything in her life, involving music or production or speaking on a microphone in that sense. So that's how that came about. Me being with D Wild Music Radio and just giving them something to play as a gift to say thank you for having me here with all the programmers. And it wound up really being a really successful dance tune when it was being played on the stations by the other DJs and when it was played in the streets and the parks, at on festivals, in Jersey. It
Mm.
became people really liked the way it felt. And
What was it like when you were there and you're hearing it played and people really getting into it?
well, I'm kind of
Used to it?
well, well, how can I put it? I'm like, just because I produce the tracks, I'm more, I guess I'm a little bit both. Like I try to be an innocent bystander and I try to be the guy who produced it. So I'm listening to see what all the elements sound like.
Let's talk about Turn Up.
Octavia, phenomenal vocalist. She's great at what she does. Actually, that is a collaboration between her, of course, vocally, and Backroom. I'm sorry, B Room Entertainment, which is
Mm.
Derek and Sid.
Mm.
And so it's all of us. We just came up with that idea. I had the made the blueprint, and we just put it together, and bam, there it is. Turn up.
Mm. And what about well, I Love Jackin'?
I
That's definitely got an old school name to it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, because I am a DJ, and I love sampling. I'm from
Yeah.
that era of drum machines and whatever I can use to get something. And I love jacking. And jacking means you jacking
Mm. Jackin'
somebody
beats.
else's
Yeah.
track and making it your own. So I love jacking. I will always love jacking.
What's your favorite track to jack?
Oh my God,
Has there been one?
not really, because it's too many that I love. But how
Right.
about this? I'll say I'm not sure if it's Chippy, but the track You Lost. It's a classic house, Chicago house track.
Oh, okay. Who by?
I think it's Chip E, but I'm not sure. I don't hold me to that, but it's a classic Chicago house track.
Okay.
Yep.
And what about Baby Come Close?
Okay, Baby Come Close. I wanted to do something on a soulful tip that a mature person that know who Smokey Robinson is, which
Right.
a lot of people would, when they hear it, they would be like, wow. And a lot of people are doing classic songs and redoing them, but I know no one thought about doing this.
Mm.
So it was something that I did as a DJ when I play out. I just wanted to play something different, for the crowd to listen to. And it turned into like something pretty good that I was like, you know what, this need to go on the album. So thank you, Smokey.
Mm. And Kissing? Ooh, Baby?
Yes. Now, Kissing was supposed to be 1993, I think it was supposed to be part of my Tracking Down the House Part 2 on Moving Records, but it never happened. Actually, I did the original in M2Ma's studio. I was doing some work with him at the time,
What
and
was that like?
it
He's
was
a legend.
yeah, it was an experience, and I met him through Abigail Adams.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I can't tell you the actor that we did some production on, but he's a young black actor. He was famous at that time. He brought me in to do some dance stuff because Mtume, of course, is a
Mm.
soulful
Yeah,
legend,
he's a legend.
R&B legend or whatever.
Mm.
And but he didn't do dance, like we did it. So he
Mm.
brought me in there to do that. It was fun and it was different. It was different, and I'm glad I met him and his group. And I learned a couple of things, from him and his group. At the time.
Cool. And Feeling This?
Feeling This is a songstress and songwriter named Chateau. Um, uh, Originally, I produced an R&B for her and on her album, and I decided to make that into a dance theme for my album.
Mm.
That's how that came about. That's actually her song that she wrote, and I produced the music to the song. So
Oh, okay.
it came. It just meshed. It's soulful and it gives the world something different than what they're kind of used to. She has a really different voice and how she goes about delivering. So
Mm.
that's how that came about. Actually, it's probably my favorite song on the album. Actually.
Right. Oh, good. Bang the Box?
Bang the box. Of course, that term comes from the acid machines back in the day, the 303 box, some rolling production tools, acid tools, with the
Mm.
acid. Um, uh, but the original, the concept outside of that, the acid undertones is Casio. That came about because I did the track called Bang the Box, and it was Derek's idea to get Casio involved. And Casio always asked, "Yo, when you guys gonna put me on the track?" Casio
Mm.
will.
Yeah.
So Derek thought this would be a good track for him. and it actually fit. And in his turn, bang the box, dancing all night, then go home and bang the box.
Right.
Which is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And from the bottom.
From the bottom, that's actually S3, which is George Sykes, the producer, and Kenny Bobian. They came up with this song and wanted me to, add my flavor to it. That's how that happened. And I actually love the track. And that track, actually the dub of that track, Louis Vega and Tony Humphries banged the hell out of it. The people love it. But
Yeah.
yeah, from the bottom, and that is about Kenny Bobian is singing that he loves, his woman from the
Okay.
bottom of his heart. That's how I
Yes.
love house, from the
Yeah.
bottom of my heart.
That's good. That's great. Forever Came the Day.
Forever Came the Day is the young female singer Marlena.
Mm,
That is, of course, a redo of Michael Jackson's Forever Came the Day.
mm,
The intent of that was part of a classic project that we all were embarking on. And that's still in the mix. That particular one we thought be good for this album. And actually, and because she's young, and we just wanted that young feel, that young vocal feel over the track. No
mm.
one to try to sound like Michael. Just she brought that young R&B feel to the track, and that's what that's about. Pretty much giving paying homage to a beautiful, well done track, and of course Mr. Michael Jackson, but doing it in our way. You know.
Right. Right. So, what are the plans for this album, Tony?
The plans for the album is to, of course, everyone love it. Like again, I want everyone to love it, but people that are from the '80s and from the '90s, especially from the hard clubs era, may enjoy this album. It's not that I did it for them, but that's who I am. I'm from that time. I am from the '80s. I'm a '60s baby. You know,
Mm,
I just hope that we could give the world something nostalgic, something that was deep from back in the day that is still viable now. Producers out here trying to do this same style, like that old classic '80s, '90s style. If you're not from there, you really can't achieve it. But
mm.
I hope that the listeners can hear, the classicness, the classic soulfulness, the classic club of this album, and know that someone from back in the day know his shit produced this. I just want everybody to dance, man. To dance. That's it. Dance to what I'm giving it from something that's out of me.
Mm.
Something that I actually never put together an album like this before. But this is my first, and it's time for Tony Vee to let everybody see who he is.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you plan to get it out there to people?
Well, we are, planning to get it out by, of course, self promotion, but also we're going to have it all the streaming platforms, all the streaming platforms. We're going to do some, small video promotion. Uh, I mean, because of this COVID thing, I can't get out there to play like I wanted to. I wanted to travel and play and play this album. But yeah, licensing. We're going to get licensing, and
Mm.
we have prospects on that also. So we're going to get it out there. We're going to get it out there.
And where do you think your strongest markets would be? Where have you, from stuff you've already been doing and just teasers you've been putting out there, where have you been getting the most feedback from?
Of course, it's out of the United States, of course.
Yeah.
But I want to say all over the world, all over the world. I get so many hits back, as far as just small promotion we do on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Different people saying that they love it, thumbs up, claps, fire sign, like from all over the world, all over the world, all over the world. Um,
Mm.
You know, of course, home, a lot of people, you know, love it too. But I would say out of the United States, the most.
Which countries?
Wow.
Is there any one in particular?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, I would say Italy.
Italy loves house music.
Italy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like I said, all over the place, you know,
Mm.
UK, like all over the place. I even had somebody from, I think hit me up from Guatemala or something.
All right.
Like I was surprised.
And you just put it on your social media, do you? And then people respond like that? Or is there a site you post it on and then people start responding?
No, just the social media at this moment. You know, just giving them a taste. Like when I do my radio show every Sunday, I will promote by, you know, giving just a little snippet, a 1 minute snippet of what's on the album. So
Mm.
at that point in time, you know, the listeners or whomever, you know, they hear that and they go, wow, this is dope. You know, wow, this is nice. You know, like I said, claps and fire signs. Like I can't wait for it to come out, you know?
If you could name three um, club records that really influenced what you do, like in a massive way, what would they be?
Wow. That's kind of difficult because,
Just three out of the many.
okay, how about this? Boy Jarvis running,
Okay.
with the late Colonel Abrams. Both of them, both
Mm.
Boy Jarvis and Colonel Abrams, died off their soul. I want to say Bring Down the Walls.
Mm.
I can't remember the group name at this moment, but it was a Chicago record. And I want to say every 70s record there is,
Yeah.
because I love strings. I love disco. I
You
don't
mean
play it.
in the dance
Yes,
arena? Yeah.
yes. I don't actually do disco, but I love the strings. I
Mm.
love strings, period. I don't
Are there
care
any,
low or fast. Hmm?
which producers do you like most from the 70s, other than M2 May
Oh
and James
well,
Lucas, who we
well.
mentioned?
When I mention these guys, they don't do anything dance. But
Mm.
my favorite producers are Eric Clapton, Phil Collins, Kenny Loggins, people of soft rock, mellow rock. That actually helps me to produce what I produce, believe it or not. And I
Right.
hear dance music in their slow, melodic grooves, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of those guys, you're talking now about that production team of the Toto, the Pecora brothers, Steve Picaro, they, from, did Human Nature and Africa with Toto, and
Oh,
Bill Champlin, Jake Graydon,
ah,
all those
yeah.
producers.
Well, and of course, they're totally before my time. So I don't know them per se, but I do know a lot of the music when I hear it, you know?
Mm,
But
right.
those guys helped and paved the way for everything that we do today.
Mm, yeah.
Everything, you know, from them to, like you said, the Entombeds, to the Quincy Joneses, to the Motown, to the Philly, to the every, like, those guys paved the way to what house is today.
Mm,
You know, from disco to whatever you R&B, wherever you want to call it. It's all club music.
right. Cool. Is there anything you want to tell me that I haven't asked?
Well, through remixing, I had dinner with Clive Davis. I've worked in every studio New York has to offer. Actually, Electric Lady, which
Mm.
was Jimi Hendrix studio.
Yeah, I know it.
We acquired that studio. That was our home studio. And
Oh, when you say we, who is that?
oh, Tony Humphries
Oh,
company, yeah. Tony Humphries.
he owned it. He bought
No,
it. Or,
no. Actually,
oh,
no. We just had lease of it. You know,
yeah.
well, yeah. Well, Tony's management had lease of it to where that was our home base.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
for a very long time. And Nordy Carter, I can't forget him. He was an engineer, and there was another engineer that engineered Stephanie Mills' whole album.
The
I
one with James M. Tuma and Reggie Lucas.
Yes, Yes, but
Okay.
I can't think of his name right now. So yeah, they were our engineers, and that's where we worked at. And it was an experience to work at Electric Lady, and that's history. And I didn't know it,
Mm.
until I got there. I was like, wow, this is crazy. That experience was a great experience, and I don't believe there would be a Tony V without a Tony Humphreys. But Tony Humphreys, I have to give him a lot of credit for giving me that opportunity and
Mm.
to produce with him, and that helped get my name in a lot of places.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.